Our next live English session will be on December 23rd. So it'll be the week of Christmas, and joining us from Pittsburgh will be Dr. Danielle Carnes, December 23rd. So you mark your calendars. On this Wellness Wednesday, I'm going to be taking the spotlight for a moment. Been hearing from a lot of our community members that we want to learn more about the science, the data, and how the tools of mindfulness can really be applicable to supporting our daily lives, living with or impacted by Parkinson's disease. So this Wellness Wednesday will be doing a deeper dive into mindfulness and Parkinson's and providing some insights and practical tools for daily support. So if you're wanting and you're curious about learning more about the foundation of mindfulness and how it can be really an essential tool in our lives with Parkinson's, and I say really as any human, please join us on this Wednesday. And Friday is our final live Fitness Friday session of the year. Can hardly believe it. Boxing for Balance with Coach Dean Moskowitz. It'll be so much fun. We're going to have a dynamic aerobic boxing class designed specifically to help manage Parkinson's symptoms. We'll have low impact boxing exercises. Hopefully it'll improve balance, your strength, and range of motion. You will build up a sweat. So if you want to get that heart rate pumping, and join us this live Fitness Friday. And Dr. Taylor Rush is joining us today from the Cleveland Clinic to guide us through our mindful moment. Thank you, Dr. Rush, for being here today.
Thank you, Krista. It's wonderful to see everyone again today. And I was just reading through the chat on all the things that folks are enjoying or brought them joy today or this weekend. And I'll share mine. I'm in Cleveland, and we had a particularly cold snap of weather that came through, including some snow with it. And on Sunday, so yesterday, we finally had above freezing temperatures, and a lot of the snow started to melt. So I was able to actually get out for a nice hike and enjoy the outdoors without worrying about my nose freezing off. So it was a wonderful, wonderful part of my afternoon yesterday. So thank you guys for sharing all of your wonderful experiences. So today I thought that we might focus a little bit on the topic of resilience. So resilience, is part of a movement with positive psychology, meaning that we're not focusing necessarily on, someone's pathology. So what's wrong? What's contributing to things like depression or anxiety or stress, but more what helps people to strengthen through adversity? What helps them to manage situations that are tough, but they come out the other side having learned something or feeling like they grew, feeling like they understand themselves better. And so, resiliency is something that I will often focus on with many of my patients who have Parkinson's, because living with Parkinson's requires resilience. It is not an easy trek. It is not a journey for the faint of heart. And often I think people sometimes forget their own strengths in those moments. And part of my job, I feel, is to help remind them of what's there. So I thought maybe we could work on that a bit today in our group. So, with resilience, the technical definition, by the American Psychological Association is it's the process of adapting well. So not just getting through and surviving, but adapting well to adversity, stress, tragedy, threats, or significant trauma. And so being resilient doesn't mean that stress doesn't affect you. It's not that it just slides off, like water off a duck's back. It's how you're able to see the situation and then respond to it in a way that fits best. So really, when you think about resiliency and mindfulness, the two go hand in hand. To be resilient means you have to see the situation as it is in the present moment, not necessarily fueled by a sense of judgment of the situation, but a sense of, just kind of observation of what's here and what do I need to do in order to get through the situation as best as I can. And, there's actually been some research on resilience in Parkinson's. And what has been found is that those who are more resilient have better qualities of life, less disability and reduced symptoms of apathy and depression. We see that even sometimes resiliency is correlated to slower progression of motor symptoms. And some of that they think that connects it is that individuals with resilient mindsets have a more active lifestyle. And as you well know from any Fitness Friday you've attended or any, physical therapy you've attended, is that regular physical activity we know helps with the management of Parkinson's symptoms and can slow disease progression. We also know that resiliency can help to reduce demoralization. So that feeling of being defeated and that doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to help. And so to be resilient means that oftentimes there are less feelings of demoralization, which often can sometimes contribute to depression or disengagement from things that are important to people. And overall psychological well-being. So we know that people who display resilience often are able to then take action on situations that maybe they didn't expect. So for many people, Parkinson's isn't something that they expected. It wasn't part of their long-term plan for this to happen. It's something that happened without their knowledge or consent. So to have something happen that is unexpected, requires some resilience and adaptation. So how do I now deal with the cards that I've been dealt? Because I can't ask for a new hand. So how do I play them as best as I can? And so by fostering resilience, those with Parkinson's can be better equipped to face the challenges of this condition, be able to maintain a higher quality of life, and maybe even slow symptom progression. So nothing really bad in the column of resilience when it comes to trying to foster this. And there's some debate where they say, well, is resilience a kind of a trait characteristic for someone? Are you born that way, or that's the mindset that you have because of genetics and whatever else? Or is it something that you can learn? And what we've actually found is that it's a little bit of both. Some people are naturally a bit more geared towards a resilient mindset. But what we also know is that most people can learn resiliency, and we can develop resiliency toolboxes to try to help manage adversity that arises. So it's not just something that you have, it's definitely something that you can learn. So for any of you who may feel like, oh, I don't know if that's me, I would say you are resilient because you're here today and you're participating in this group. And someone who isn't resilient wouldn't be here because they wouldn't think of this as an option that would be helpful. So you're already resilient. And so maybe we just tap into that a little bit more. So we're going to do a little bit of a guided meditation. And this is actually a script that was adapted from one written by Scott Rogers. And it's a way to try to envision resiliency with the imagery of a storm, such as a hurricane. Okay. I've done some imagery with storms before, but this one kind of takes a slightly different spin on it. So let's see where it goes today. So go ahead and get into whatever comfy position feels best. If you want to sit or recline or lie down, sometimes people may turn off their cameras during the active meditation, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And I want you can close your eyes if that feels right, or you can just find a soft fixed point a few feet in front of you where you can gaze. And as you settle, starting to anchor to the breath, not trying to change the rhythm or the cadence of your breath in any way, but just noticing how it rises and falls. And just maybe noticing the groundedness of where your feet may be hitting the floor or any furniture that it may be propped up on. Maybe noticing your hips and legs and where they may make contact with your seat. Maybe noticing your arms being by your side or also supported by furniture. Maybe even noticing the tips of your fingers and where they may be making contact with your body or another surface. Just allowing yourself to truly come into this moment, letting all the other thoughts just kind of float through the wall, knowing you can come back to them later. As you start to cultivate this mindful space for yourself, bringing to mind that there are times where things in life can become very intense and take a very quick turn, which can be similar to a storm, such as a hurricane. By creating this image in our minds, it can sometimes help us to understand how mindfulness can be helpful when we observe our own nature moment by moment, allowing a bit more of a third party perspective of our own experience. And right here, we can ground in maybe 3 intentional deep breaths. Taking a deep breath in, fully expanding your lungs, and slowly, gently breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. One more breath in and out. We know that the nature of storms, such as hurricanes, they tend to arise when conditions are sufficient for it to come together. And in time, it eventually dissipates, very similar to our own emotions. There might be times when we experience agitation, frustration in the body, which can be very similar to the strong winds and heavy rain that feed the hurricane. Might even reflect for a moment on times when you've felt that kind of intensity in your body, a sense of unrest, tension, unease, and feeling heaviness in the pit of your stomach. And when that happens, you might also notice thoughts that come up. It can be judgmental, negative, reactive, much like the high level clouds that can intensify the hurricane as they move away from it. And if you notice any thoughts that arise right now that may hold some judgment or reactivity, just want to notice them as they start to move away, as they change and dissipate. There can be an ethereal nature to our thoughts and our emotions, something we can't quite touch or sometimes even describe, but we feel very intensely. Maybe times when we experience very intense emotions like anger, fear, which might be similar to the eye wall of a hurricane, which tends to have the most extreme conditions. Sometimes people say that they notice some of those feelings in response to certain activities, interacting with certain people, having to deal with certain physical symptoms of Parkinson's. All of these things can evoke some very strong emotional experiences. Then also, there may be times when you experience a sense of calm, such as what is described within the eye of the storm. It's recognizing that these intense emotions that surround the eye may not necessarily need to go away to sometimes feel a sense of calm despite their existence. And by kind of transitioning to an observer role, we can free ourselves from the intensity of those thoughts and emotions. Be able to find a sense of refuge, even if we can't change the conditions around us. It can be such a gift that we give ourselves, despite it being an incredibly challenging thing to do. Important to acknowledge that it can be done and you have done it. Just sometimes have to remember that strength that lies within. Settling into the body, being aware of these thoughts and emotions that ebb and flow, being aware that you can always anchor back to the breath to feel a bit more steady, to tap into that inner source of calm and strength. And being able to do this gently and persistently, we're able to cultivate resilience. It can help us to ground in some of these more intense and uncomfortable moments in our lives. Like the end of The Wizard of Oz when Glinda tells Dorothy that she had the power all along. You don't need the ruby slippers. Just need to tap into what's within. Now, returning to that sensation of breath, doing a quick scan of your body, noticing those sensations in your fingertips, even noticing how those sensations change with each breath that you take. Noticing the feet and their groundedness on floor or furniture. Ever so slightly starting to move with intention. Shoulders, neck, wiggling those fingers and toes. When you feel you're ready, coming back to a more active awareness of our space here. Mm. Trying to see some eyes open. As you reorient, would love as always for reflections on your practice today. What did you notice? What was challenging? What was interesting? What did you feel like you tapped into? Because it's always a different journey each time, and say it's, when you pull water out of the stream, each time it's different water, even if it's the same stream. So is the case with mindfulness practice. And so it can be an interesting growth experience and help to foster resilience to kind of see what you come up against with this. I often find that for me, there are days that it feels very easy to get into this zone, and then other days it seems like I'm always coming up against a brick wall. And if nothing else, it helps me to then prompt the question, okay, where is that wall coming from, and why am I experiencing it today? And so, some days it's not about how do I get over the wall, but maybe why the wall is there. So we've got a few folks who've talked. Or chatted here. Let's see, that was quite a ride. Thank you. Don't want to come back. Sometimes you're so in the zone. It feels so good to be in that place that coming back, it feels like you're stepping, out of the warm pool into the cool air. And calming, very relaxing, made me realize PD is just part of my life, not my whole life. And Krista, thank you for sharing sensitivity to the hurricane metaphor, and given some of the storms this fall in Helene, but recognizing resiliency and embracing the challenge realistically and metaphorically. Yeah, sometimes it's hard when we have those experiences that make us bristle, and especially when they're fresh. So I can totally understand why there would be a strong reaction for those who understand what that's like. To be reminded of the possibility of resilience is empowering and encouraging. Felt a recognition of the resilience I've already shown and felt strong. Oh, wonderful. I'm I'm glad that some folks came away feeling that way, because that just certainly was my goal. That was my goal. I wanted you guys to recognize your own strengths that you already have. And Chris said, I don't need the ruby slippers. So that's one that I always come back to. And I think with Wicked being in the theaters and so popular, I think it's high on my brain right now. And someone said, I kept yawning, but I think that my breath deepened, so it was very relaxing. So yeah, sometimes when we yawn, it can sometimes be that we're not getting quite enough air, or we need kind of a refresh a little bit. So, kind of listening to sometimes what our body is telling us with our respirations. And so I think when coming up against some of those situations, and that where you feel like it's overwhelming, or, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? Or today just feels like it's going to be really, really hard. It's, recognizing what what you have gotten through in the past and what got you there, what helped you to get through, and how did you make it. And so I think sometimes, calling upon those previous situations and the fact that you have these amazing factors of resilience. I think they don't tend to be the first thing that come to mind, but I think if given the opportunity, you can conjure them with a little bit of prompting. And so when it said, I've been very shaky today here at work, but it seems to have settled down now a bit. Could feel the turmoil of reliving some stressful situations, but then the self-calming possible with mindfulness and remembered how I coped. And someone said that they really enjoy the midday mindfulness break because it helps them to ground in the midst of mayhem. It's great alliteration. And some folks have mentioned, they were kind of tired and have trouble staying awake, which can happen. And because sometimes we are just go, 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 and we don't necessarily always listen to what our body may be telling us until we actually sit. And sometimes it's telling us that it's tired, and or we've already had a long day, or we didn't get a great night's sleep. And so sometimes those are important prompts to listen to as well. And why is it that if I settle for a moment that I start to get tired? What is my body telling me? So those are definitely good questions to ask yourself. So again, don't, always try to plow through the wall, but figure out why the wall is there. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all of your participation and beautiful contributions. I am so happy that I get to do this each month with you, and have no plans on stopping, and Krista seems to keep letting me come. So I will definitely be seeing you in 2025.
Thank you, Taylor. It's always such a pleasure to be guided with your voice, with your knowledge and your expertise, inviting us into a place of depth and a place of pause. So really appreciate you and can't wait for you to return next year. And thanks to all of you who continue to show up. The reason why Mindfulness Mondays continues is because you are committed to your practice, you're committed to this community, and you're committed to the health and well-being of yourself. So thank you for always taking a pause to be present with whatever is happening in your life in this moment. So thank you so much. A gentle reminder that our next live session will be December 23rd, and I'm going to be pre-recording setting a New Year's intentions that all of you who sign up for the 2025 Mindfulness Monday series will receive that recording New Year's Eve, so we can really be intentional with how we begin the new year. If at any point you have any questions between our sessions, don't hesitate to reach out to the foundation. We have the website of so much information and resources. We also have Parkinson specialist staffing on our helpline and our helpline email. The information's right there on the screen for you all. So until soon, until our next session, if I don't see you for our Wellness Wednesday this week, that is tailored to mindfulness, doing a deep dive and understanding the benefits of mindfulness for people with Parkinson's and for humans really in general, but especially for people with Parkinson's, then I'll see you for our live session on December 23rd. Be well, my friends, and don't forget, you don't need ruby slippers.